What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Barndo Show, and we are going to have a fun day today looking back at some of our favorite guest episodes on the Barndo Show. We've had so many incredible people come in and talk about some really cool concepts and things. So today, we want to recap some of those big highlight moments as Pete Wilson is going to talk about generosity in life and business and unpack that. And man, I'm so excited about that, as well as Nick Alfano on building a truth-focused culture. If you've tuned in at all and listened to how we operate as a business, this is a key component of how we started. Andre Bauer, the former lieutenant governor of the state of South Carolina, is going to talk about the expansion in business in the South and why South Carolina and the Southeast is attracting people from all over the country. And then we're going to hear from Pam Dean on giving back through the game of baseball. You know that I'm passionate about the Miracle League, and I hope that you get a lot from this. I'm excited. Let's jump right in. We have tons of people watch that want to build Barndos. Some people are asking, like, what do we stand for? What are we about? But also we have a lot of, like, entrepreneurs and, people who are looking at what we did. And I promise you, if we can do it, you can do it. And so one of those things is just, finding something bigger than yourself to to dive into. And that's been you all day, man, from, I remember reading Plan B, man, like, just stacking on top of that. And so I know you do a lot outside of your corporate gigs with helping people get attached to giving and do different things like that. So I just wanted to lean into that, man, and hear some of your perspective on the power of giving and getting behind stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's huge. And, I could talk about this for hours. And I think more and more, even for-profit companies are discovering the power of generosity and what it can do for their employees as well as their customers, as far as not just their image, but building trust. And, it's funny, we're in the loan process right now. And I know you guys have talked about that on the podcast. And it's, you're meeting with all these different bankers. And one of the first things they ask is, tell us about your builder, right? And so even in that conversation, having the ability to share, not just, oh yeah, it's a great group out there and, on the East Coast doing great work. We can talk about the heart of your company and what you guys are really all about. For me, I think the first time I discovered the power of this was back in 2010. At that time, I was leading a church here in Nashville called Crosspoint Church. And we were certainly experiencing some growth. But 2010, Nashville had this massive flood, which some people remember. If not, you can go Google it and look at the pictures. It was just a tremendous force of water that flooded our city. And thousands of people displaced from their homes and all that. It happened over a weekend. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. And I remember a pastor friend of mine, his name was Dino Rizzo. He was at the time at a church down in New Orleans. And they had been through some hurricanes. And he called me and he said, Pete, what are you guys going to do about the flood? What's your response going to be? And I was like, I don't know, Dino. It's like, it's happening right now. He's like, well, what are you guys going to do? I was like, Dino, I don't do flood recovery, man. I have no idea. I'm a pastor. He's like, bro, if you don't step up to the plate right now and own this, you're going to miss a golden opportunity. He said, this is your chance to show people what you guys are really about. And I was like, all right, man. I had no idea what I was doing. At that time, Twitter was still really big. And so I put out a tweet that night and just said, hey, our church is going to do some flood relief starting tomorrow. I mean, the flood was still going on. We were way ahead of the curve. Just sent out a tweet, said, if anyone wants to join us and help us, bring a pair of work gloves, any other tools you got, and we'll meet in the parking lot of the church. Over 1,200 people showed up on that Monday morning, that first day. By the end of that week, we had tens of thousands of volunteers showing up. The city of Nashville made us the lead in recovery, like a church with a pastor who knows nothing about recovery, nothing about rebuilding, nothing about any, we were just the first to show up and say, we're going to help. We don't have a plan yet, but we'll find some people to help. I'm telling you, with over the next month, we had busloads of people coming from other cities that would drive to our church parking lot, get out, and say, "Where can we help?" And we were just putting volunteers all over the city of Nashville. Our church was never the same after that. When people ask what made it one of the top 5 fastest growing churches in the country for several years in a row, I always take them back to 2010 and the heart of generosity the church showed. When the city saw that, even people who wanted nothing to do with the church, because the church is has some of the same issues that businesses have, right? People look at businesses kind of weird. They're just about money, or they're just about getting rich. Churches deal with all that for profits deal with, as far as people's opinion of them and what they're doing behind the scenes, all that. With that, though, with that event and us getting out there like that, it just changed everything. It put down people's guards, and even people who aren't really even interested in church were like, if I ever want to go to a church, I think I'll go to that church. And then they did. And that was the first time I saw it. After that, man, we just doubled down on it. We're like, this is the easiest way for us to communicate to a city what it is that we're really about, just serving people, regardless of who they were, what their background was, whether they'd ever come to our church or not. We just got out there and we served. And we just kept doing things like that. We started a thing called the Dollar Club, which I love, where once a month we asked everybody in the church, just give $1, just give $1, and everybody give $1. And then we would take it that week and we'd take a video crew with us, and we'd go out and we'd find somebody who we could just change their life. It was usually around $8,000 to $10,000 that we collected. We'd take that out and just bless somebody, just serve somebody, do some construction on their yard or their house or whatever, help them out with some bills. And we'd come back the next week and show everybody that video, and they'd go nuts. And it was just like showing them, hey, when we all just chip in just a little bit, just $1, look at the impact that we can have. So that, for me, TJ, that's the first kind of season of my life where I realized the impact that generosity can have, whether it's money, whether it's time. It really doesn't matter. Just being generous and serving people in your community, I think, can have a tremendous impact for corporations.
Oh, there's no question, man. And people buy into it because it's not self-serving. And
That's right.
it seems like it would be the opposite, right? But people buy into it so quick. And what's cool about that story to me is, like, you just said yes, and that's and so I got another coach, mentor, friend in my life. He's actually right up the road from me there in Brentwood, and he hit one of the first things he ever said that just hit me was, "Be where your feet are." And he was using it in a context of like, hey, when you're at home, turn the phone off, be there. When you're at work, be there. When you're at your kid's Little League game, be there. But it goes over to this giving too. Like, someone to hear you talk about that and be like, well, dang, maybe we'll have a natural disaster and we can show up and start being generous. But it doesn't take that. You just have to show up where you are locally. And, for us with the Miracle League, it's a really cool program. And we have a lot of people in our company and other companies that have got behind it because of us getting involved. And there's people there way before we got there. But for us, people ask me all the time, how did you get tied up with that? Well, it's because I have a special needs daughter that plays ball there, and I had a need. I saw how they served, and it was just a great fit, and they're local, and it was just, I'm going to show up and do it. And I remember about 2020, I called Pam Dean, who's the director of our league here, and I was like, I want to be a board member. She was like, I don't ever get phone calls that just, hey, I want to join the board. And she was like, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of things, and I was like, look, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be involved, and I, bless this. And I can remember a time when, prior to this, being in ministry and stuff, and I was always like, I always had the heart for helping people. I just never had no money. And, now we're in this amazing opportunity here with this company, and like, we had the ability to give. And so now I didn't lose the heart of giving. Now I have the ability to do it in a bigger capacity. But it started with me just taking a risk and saying, "Hey, I'm going to do it." And at that point in time, I was just trying to figure out how could I give $500 to be, that level of a sponsor and like come out and volunteer in some way, some shape, some form. I had no idea that a year later, we'd be donating massive sums of money and have this machine and have clients who are excited because they know, hey, a portion of this is going to help that. And, have a company of people who are more excited about, how many kids signed up, how many nights do we get to go out there and volunteer. And like, it's a big deal. They get more out of showing up and volunteering on game night than the big check day, but
Yep.
it just started by saying, yeah, I mean, I have absolutely no idea apart from just circumstance. This is where I was. This is something that I found myself in, and we plugged in and engaged. And I didn't really, again, had no idea how it would be received. I'd heard people tell me, hey, you need to have something bigger than yourself. And, it was good advice, but I had no experience there. And we just started, and it escalated so quickly to the point to where our employees were like, what are we going to give? And I'd say, and they like, we need to do more. How many games are we volunteering? Let's try to do more, and now it's escalated to the point where like, they're like, we need to build a second field. And my company's like, we're going to do it. We're going to, we're going to build the field. We're going to do this stuff. And then as we expanded and we opened up our Somerville down near the coast, like Charleston area, we moved into that market, and there's a Miracle League down there. And we ended up actually donating money there before we ever even made like a rent payment. And then we just opened the Dunn office, and same thing. Like we connected with a thing there. And I was telling a story last Thursday, April 4th. We had our ribbon cutting up there, and I'm trying to like do last minute stuff and get ready for this whole shindig. And one of the first ladies there, she comes walking up, and she's like tears in her eyes, and she's like, "Thank you so much for your extreme generosity. You guys, joining the chamber, they connected me with you. I had no idea that, you guys would come through like you did. And without you, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And we lost our funding last year." And she's talking all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. And I had no idea what she was even talking about. It didn't even come through me. My team was contacted, and there was a need there for, something to raise awareness for childhood victims and stuff. And they donated this massive sum of money, and my leadership team made that happen, and I didn't even know. And it was just the impact that it's rubbed off. And so now it's bigger than me. It's way bigger than me. There's a reason why I was stuck. There's a reason why I'd only been able to get things so far. It's because I was not operating at my full capacity. So there's no way for me to pour into a business and take it anywhere. When my home life's in shambles, or this is happening and all these different things, or if it's all about the money, bro, like it just doesn't work. And some people find short-term success.
Sure.
But to build something that's long-term and built, like I say, with integrity, it takes that.
Well, that's the build and burn cycle, which I was stuck in as well, which a lot of guys are stuck in. So then you get this ego that you are the man because you built a couple cool things, but you'll self-sabotage every time until you do the real work, the deep work, what I call the subconscious work. And that's exactly where you were. Like, you had 8 things. Like, you were the guy, and I was the guy, so that's why it was fun to connect with you. Like, if I was at a networking event and someone said, "What do you do?" It was like, what don't I do?
That's
right.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, you know how many companies I got? Like, I remember our first meeting, you wanted to kill me for the first 90 days. I don't know where I'm supposed to be looking. The first 90 days that this dude worked with me, he mother effed me probably once a week. He would call me. And that's when I say, like, trust the process and lean in, because our first meeting, we went over all the sources of TJ's income, and we had 7 or 8 things on the board. Maybe it was 8.
Yep.
And we ranked them. And then what was interesting is Barndo was just an idea at the time. It was just a concept. And I hadn't met Ross yet. And we were like, okay, these are the 8 ways that TJ brings money home to his army of children. But the question that isn't really what they bring in is like, which one like lights you up, and then which one has the most potential to make the biggest impact for your family and beyond. And after we did all the filtering, it came down to Barndo, and I was like, that's the one. He's like, bro, like, we don't even have a LLC. This thing ain't ready yet. You know what I mean? It's just we're kicking it around. My partner and I, who you haven't even met, I said, cool, burn everything to the ground. Burn every single thing on the top of this list down and go all in on that. And he was like,
I was crazy enough to do it.
But I remember you were like living off of your Amex, and you were calling me every week, like, "Fuck, my wife's gonna kill me. This makes no effing sense." And I'm like, "Bro, you want to trust the process? You want to win, or you want to keep? You can go back to old TJ and spin plates, bro, and have those are all ego. Those are all ego plays.
That's right.
And I was the guy. I did the same thing, man. I told you I read that line by Warren Buffett or heard the line or something like the average millionaire has 7 sources of income or something. Yeah. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna go open 7 LLCs.
That's right. That's the secret.
Man,
that's all we need.
Yeah. So.
No, for sure. Well, I mean, and I remember being in that space, and the crazy thing about it was, at that moment in time, even though I was leaning in and like I did the work and burned everything to the ground, and really when I did that, that's when Ross was like, "What are you doing? Yeah. Are you on a mission to destroy yourself?" And I'm like, "Nah, dude, this is the way." And it was a couple months later, Ross came in and
three months
had same experience, kind of, was like, "Oh my gosh." And so once we got in alignment, Katie barred the door, but I remember even in that moment, it was about what I could bring to the table and how it could benefit me. And it was all centered around a product. Like, there is a product and I can take it to the market and I can sell the product and, all this stuff. And like inside that first year working with you, like, as much as I was chasing product, my passion's people.
Yeah.
And so, I remember there was a point in time where like we hit this growth and we were like pulling employees in left and right. And I made a post one night because I was just up thinking, because I don't ever sleep. And I was like, I don't build barns, I build people.
Yeah, buddy.
People build barns. And that was the capacity in which I thrive, is not only just being a visionary and having these like crazy ideas, and then having a business partner that's 100% a God thing, right? That Ross and I met, because he's 100% like just get it done.
Yeah.
But how that pulled me more into leading people and opening up doors and I would have never been able to do it had I not like stopped and looked in and been like, whoa.
It's a fun time to be a South Carolinian, especially if you're an entrepreneur.
Oh, there's no question, man. It is absolutely booming in the Palmetto State. And, talking about infrastructure, everybody that comes here complains about the highways. And one is they weren't designed for this many people. Number two is we're always having to build them. So there's no way to make them.
I was in Atlanta yesterday. Yeah. And if you take a mid-size, Atlanta's a big city. We're a mid-size city, but in all the places I've lived, the ability to get around Greenville and outlying areas is probably better than any of the other cities I've lived in, because it has so many different arteries coming into the city, and most cities don't have that many. I don't want to reference other cities I've lived in, but nobody has the infrastructure system that we're fortunate enough to have here in Greenville.
I think you just have the old Carolina boys that are like, where are all these people doing
it's easy to go from scratching your head going, how did we get here? But it's happening all over the South. And it's through a lot of good years. You could go back a lot of governors and a lot of good people that led in the House and Senate that passed great tax policy, good business policy. There were a lot of people a long time ago. And since then, you go all the way back to Campbell bringing BMW here, and then Boeing, Volvo, Michelin. I mean, you go down a litany of companies, big companies that brought a lot here, and what they spun off to the smaller companies. It created an infrastructure of businesses that were proven, and more folks want to. When I was still in office, I can remember going to Abu Dhabi and Dubai to meet with folks that were looking at investing here at one time in an intermodal port outside of Orangeburg. And so there's more and more folks looking at where their dollars are most useful, and whether it's employment, whether it's land. You still get a lot of, even though we think, God, prices are going up, compared to other places, you still get a whole lot of bang for your buck. And of course, the company that I do a lot of work for that hired me, when they do their presentations, and they'll have thousands of people looking, and they say, you can still buy a very nice house here for $400,000. And for when folks are up north and they see $400,000, they can't get a trailer on the worst spot in the worst shape for that, and they can get a brand new 3-bedroom nice house for $400,000 here on a piece of land. It's a big life change for them. And so it's easy for us not to totally understand it, but there's a reason why people are coming here in droves.
Yeah, well, and I think it all is the pioneering of the industry that's came here. Because when I was a kid, that's when BMW planted here, and it was basically in our backyard. And you know, you have something like BMW come here, and it was, what's funny is as a kid in Greenville, South Carolina, growing up in Greer, you know, everybody drove a Beamer. Like that was, you know, one of the incentives of working there is you could get you a car, and so you know you go places. People are like, man, you see that BMW? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like a BMW? It's like a Ford Taurus around where we live.
There was a
like,
time when we had a 5 Series that they had given to the Highway Patrol, and the Highway Patrol drove a BMW. If I'd ever been governor, I was close, but I didn't quite get there. I was as close as you can get without being governor. I would have tried to have cut a deal with BMW and said, look, make us a car that doesn't have as many frills, but we want to buy South Carolina. And so whether it's Volvo, whether it's BMW, if I were governor, I would do everything I could to patronize businesses that pay taxes and employed people in South Carolina. And we'd have some way that even through government bids, we'd pay a little bit more because of the back end that we collect off that and the jobs those create. And so that was one of the dreams that never worked out. And you never know, I'm 55. Maybe I got one more run in me. Who knows? Not anything I'm looking for right now, looking over there at that 4-year-old here with us. But maybe I just can help pick the right next one. And we have more of that conversation to try to really encourage, because I think a big sales pitch is, hey, if you come to South Carolina, whether it be county, city, state, we're going to try to spend our dollars with you before we ever go outside the boundary of this state to do business with somebody else. And we're going to give you a little attaboy, a little nod, a little old good old boy system that we want you here. We're glad to have you here, and we're going to spend our dollars with you first.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the recipe of success in the state is they come, they employ, people start getting great jobs. You start seeing houses go up everywhere. And so, you know, when I was growing up, my dad was in the trades. And so I can remember the huge boom that came to the Greenville area with BMW, and he was building houses like crazy. And then you see that expand. So like Greenville reaped the benefits of that for forever, and still reaping the benefits of it. But then like you go down to Berkeley County, and Volvo shows up and drops in there, basically the same thing, you know, Boeing being down in the same area, like that area growing. And to see Berkeley County today is insane.
Yeah, who'd ever thought they'd have a Halls in Berkeley County?
Yeah. Well, not only that, I mean, they built a Halls and then built a whole new city around it. You know,
when they told me, I had to go see. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and Hall's Chop House is like if you in Greenville,
it's becoming a South Carolina staple now.
Yeah, man,
they're good guys.
It's crazy to see, and I can remember when we launched our Somerville office, and it kind of led to the connection to me and you in that same area. But we launched there, and we started building spec homes and turning things out, and people were like, "Where are you building these at?" And we're like, "In Ridgeville, South Carolina," and they're like, "Ridgeville? You're building in Ridgeville?" And we're like, "Yeah," and we built a couple of houses out there, and I mean, you're talking country estates, $800,000 homes in Ridgeville.
Yeah.
And the people could never wrap their mind around that 10 years ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. But it's with all that, the way the state is ran and the incentive for companies to come here, it creates opportunities for everybody. And so now, you know, you look at it, and you look at Horry County, you know, the number one destination for people coming here. It's like Horry, Berkeley, Greenville. If you look at the top 5, top 10, South Carolina always has at least 3, if not 4 or 5 of the cities that people are moving to from all over the country. What do you think that's because of?
A lot of things. So with Broad Street that I'm working with now, we're getting ready to do a big one in Lancaster, which has basically become a suburb of Charlotte. Taxes are still low. When I left office, I don't know what it is now. I knew the numbers better, and that's been 14 years ago. But South Carolina ranked 13th in the country when you factored in all taxes. If you look at property taxes, we may think they're high, but if you look other places, if you look at the sales tax on a car, we have a $500 cap. If you buy a brand new Chevy truck, if you go buy your brand new 911, it caps out at $500. When I left office, I had fought it for 8 years to keep it at $300. They managed to get it to $500 after I left office. But you go to Tennessee, it's 10% of whatever you buy.
Yep.
You buy a $50,000 car, you owe an extra $5,000. And so you look at sales tax, you look at hidden fees. While sometimes I still scratch my head and go, we're raising taxes way too fast and spending too much. The one benefit to us is the other states are doing it faster than us.
Yeah.
And so that when you look at being almost in the center between Miami and New York, when you look at Greenville, almost the center between Charlotte and Atlanta, we are positioned so well. We have two major intersections, a gigantic port, one of the biggest on the East Coast. We have a lot of things that are recipes for success. There's still some charm in Southern folks. I can see it changing even where I live. I can see a lot more folks moving down, and they don't wave quite as much as I do and don't speak quite as much as I do. But whether we like it or not, it's going to change. I tell you, one of the things I learned at a young age was networking. And everybody says that, but whether it was buying tires or getting somebody to do something for me, they'd patronize me, I'd patronize them, they'd help me a little bit, I'd help them a little bit. And it's not how much you make, it's how much you save.
Yep.
And so my granddad was a carpenter, and he taught me that at a young age, to network with people. And then when you needed something, people would look after you. And so when you can get that, when you can get the dependable tradesman, whatever it is you're needing to do on a project or a property, sometimes there's value more in the price, there's more value in dependability and knowing the kind of job you're going to get than what the bottom line is.
Yeah. Well, I can say this. I think there's something in being a South Carolinian, right? Especially born and raised. And people see my life, and you only see glimpses. You know, the public eye sees what I put out there. But, you know, I got a huge family. I got tons of commitments as a dad, big commitments as a husband. And then I'm running this enterprise of building, and I'm always doing something. Even my mom texted me like 30 minutes ago and was like, I don't know how you do all of what you do, but I'm proud of you.
Busy people get things done.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say a testament to that is like you are as busy, maybe busier than me, and always doing something. But the cool thing about it is if I pick up my phone and I call, you're going to answer the phone. And I don't know very many places that I've been that's always the case. And, you know, the relationships inside of this state that we're in. I mean, like you have people who will answer the phone. It's like a friendship. Like nothing inside of doing business together has been business related. It's just been relationships. And
it's a cool state. I mean, I still call the governor, and keep in mind, I ran against him in 2010, but we're buddies and we're friends. And if I call him, he calls me back. And I don't know how many states you could actually do that. So there is some real charm to South Carolina.
So let's do this. Let's dive in. 27 years doing this. Mm-hmm. There got to be some funny stories in there.
Oh my gosh.
Or some life-changing stuff that you've experienced.
I've had some life-changing things that make me come back year after year after year. Mm-hmm. My favorite one probably is Michael Sellers. Do you know Michael?
I know Michael.
Okay, so when Michael came, I just want to tear up when I tell these stories. Michael's family drove him from Gaffney, that's where they live, for Gaffney, to play ball. But before that, he went to the Shriners Hospital in Greenville every single week for therapy. He has CP, and he has a very hard gait. So they were trying to get him walking. So he came to us young, had a walker that he pulled behind him, not pushed. He pulled it behind him. He came up to bat one night. He hit the ball. He took 5 steps with his walker. He stopped, and we're all going, come on, Michael. Run, Michael, run, Michael. He let go of the walker for the very first time, went to first base, stopped. Next batter came up. He went to second. Next batter came. He went to third. On the little route from third to home, it was very hard for him because he had now exhausted his muscles, but he finally made it. He crawled into home plate. There was not a dry eye in the park. It was the most phenomenal thing. That moment, because this little simple game of baseball, that moment, he knew he could walk without that walker. He plays today. He's over 6 feet tall. He is this far. You can't see me, but 2 inches. He is this far from hitting that ball over the fence.
I know
it may go this spring.
Yep. And he can round them bases now.
And he can round the bases. Now, when I see him running it to me at full speed, I go, oh, my gosh, I'm going down. We're going down. We're going down. Yes, because he's still unsteady. But look what he has accomplished. You know what else he does? He sings the national anthem for us.
Yeah, he does. He does a good job, too.
Yes, he does.
I love it.
And here's another one. I love this one. I had the Coon brothers. They were young, very young. He had autism. So he came out to play. It's loud. It's overwhelming. It's new. He was a little overwhelmed by the whole process. Started to have a meltdown. Now, this is the key. His mother did not give up. She picked him up, took him to home plate. They got a hit. She got the hit. She took a hit for him. He's carrying on. He's having a meltdown. She takes him to first. They go through that whole routine. Takes him to first, takes him to second, gets him to third. She modeled the behavior he was supposed to have. She set the example, and she applied discipline. When he came back the second week, he thought he was a professional ball player. That was it. And do you know what he does now? He stopped playing with us because now he's playing touch football.
That's awesome.
So just let me get some confidence, let me get a little skills, and then I can go on and do something else.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's sometimes it's hard to connect. Like if you haven't experienced some of this stuff, but someone is listening that has a special needs child, and they're thinking like, "How in the world my kid could never play this?"
Do you know who I have the most problems with? Listen to me, parents. The parents believe that they can't do it, or they won't do it, or they'll embarrass them, or it won't be perfect.
Yep.
We don't care. Yeah. The goal is we'll get a hit somehow and we'll get to first base. And then next week we'll work on it a little more. Yep. And by the end of the season, they'll be getting their own hits. What we see with a brand new player is by the third game they can hit a pitch ball. Not all of them, but the majority of them.
Yep.
And we will get them around the bases. And my goodness, they think they're rock stars.
Well, what's great about it, it's such a judgment-free zone. It is a place to live, and everywhere you go, if you're listening to this and you've got a special needs family member, you know the pressure.
Yes.
It doesn't exist there.
Right.
This is normal now. Like we are all in this together.
You're in our part.
Yeah. It's so. I remember I had the same anxiety around it. Like, oh boy, here we go. And then you get there and you're like, okay, wait, everybody's having an oh boy.
That's right.
This is fun. And so,
and we have more of those on Thursdays. The older they get, the less of that we get.
Yeah. But it is absolutely incredible to experience. And again, we could sit here and talk about it all day long. You have to experience it. You have to get out there and experience the joy on a kid's face.
Yes.
From hitting a ball.
When they hit a pitched ball, their eyes light up and they know they have instantly done something.
Yes.
It is incredible. And let me tell you, parents, this 6 to 11 is when we experience the most behavior.
Yep.
When they go up to the 12 to 20 group,
yep.
It's the sweet spot. They're past all that. They've learned. They've developed. They know who they are. They're getting the confidence. Stick with it through the 6 to 11. Yep. Stick with it.
Yeah, we're there now with Haley. Like it's night and day different. Like now it's enjoyable. Like to the point, where she's equally as excited as we are to be there.
Yes, you have to get through the 6 to 11. You have to get through that time frame.
That's incredible.
Okay, one more story.
Yeah, let's
got
hear
a minute?
Yeah.
All right, so this is Katrina. She's older. She was 20 years old. She had brittle bone disease, so she had had a lot of surgeries. Wasn't very trusting, had a lot of anxiety. Her sister started the season before, and she did well, and so she brought Katrina, her older sister, with her. Just very angsty the whole time. Well, she aged up for the next season and had to go to the next division and couldn't play the same night that her sister played. She wasn't coming back. I'm not coming back. I stayed after her. Oh, you got to come back. I want to play with you. You've got to come back. Well, finally, she decided she liked baseball better than not, so she came back on Tuesday. Now, let me tell you about what she's doing now. She is singing the national anthem. She is learning to hit a pitched ball from a seated position because that's all she can do. Somebody believed in her, somebody gave her the chance, and she took the ring and ran with it. And now she's very confident. I love this one. She said to her mother, "Why doesn't Pam ask me to sing the national anthem?" And her mother said, "Well, I don't know that she knows you can." So I said, "Would you like to sing the national anthem?" "Yes, I would." And she did it beautifully. That's just all confidence right there.
100%. No, it's incredible. I again, a lot of this is how well the organization's ran here in Spartanburg, that you get all these moments and you get, all the custom entrances and so you got,
your walk-up music is very important.
Yes. You got to have the right bat and the right walk-up music.
Yes. And a lot of times it's the color of the bat.
That's right.
It's not the weight of the bat, it's the color of the bat.
That's right. It's got to go. It's got to look good. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, but no, it's such a fun thing. And so, the biggest thing was I just wanted to come on here and just say I'm so thankful that you provide this because it takes a lot of work. And I mean, there's days where I'll tell Hannah, I'm like, I don't know how she does it. Like it is crazy. I tried to get together just a small basketball, like a winter basketball thing. Just not even a league, just thing. And it was so difficult to even coordinate the beginning steps of that I was thinking to myself, how in the world? And I'm a pretty resourceful guy. And I'm like, to run this at that scale?
It's kind of on its tracks now.
Yeah.
You know, we're into our 17th season. So the beginning, the growth, that was where it would get, iffy. We got to go, oh my gosh, we now got to go to 2 nights. Oh my goodness.
We catered some questions specific to what you do. And so the first one is, could you describe some of the programs, services, and events that Carolina Miracle League offers to participants and their families? And I would say what leagues do you have? But in addition to that, y'all do some really cool stuff.
We do. So we are the only league here in Spartanburg and surrounding communities. I've got them driving from Clinton, Simpsonville, Gaffney to come play ball with us because they don't have it in their own communities. But here's the 2 things that we do that are very special. We do an Easter egg hunt every spring, right at Easter time. You know what we discovered? That just because a special needs child is 30 doesn't mean that they don't want to still go hunt Easter eggs. But people tend to frown upon that because when they see the size of them, because you think this is just for little children. So we do an Easter egg hunt for everybody from age 6 to 66. And it is a great event with Easter bunny, mascot, and eggs and prizes and all kinds of fun things and games. That is one thing we do. The biggest and best thing we do is our trunk or treat event at the end of October. Yep. Again, the same thing. Some of these kids would look like they should have aged out of going trunk or treating, but they still want to do it.
Yep.
And we want to give them a safe environment where we model the behavior, how to do it. We put people around them to keep them safe, and we set them free in a parking lot that is full of 50 trunks full of candy, and they go for it. We also have dancing, a dance contest, costume contest. We have all these things. I believe that if you give them opportunities, they will learn, they will grow, and they will be the very best that they can be. So I try to provide that. We did a little carnival at our 15th anniversary. We had rides. Does your child know how to ride a ride at the fair? Do you want to practice with us, just being around your peers? And then maybe you could go to Disney World and go ride the big rides. Those are the kind of things we like to promote just so that we can train them up.
I love it. And you always got so much like forethought into like, it's not just an event, it's equipping them with,
no, that's the deal.
Skills. Yeah.
And you know why? Because I have a special needs child. You got to equip them. My child could ride on an airplane. He could go anywhere, go in any restaurant, do any kind of things. But we had to practice first.
That's right.
Before they got better at it.
That's so good.
Thank you.
So good. All right. Second barn burner.
Okay, let me tell you this about events.
Here
we
we
have
go.
become a clearinghouse. The Carolina Miracle League, here's my list. We have become a clearinghouse for when we started, we were it. But because we've had a paradigm shift, people see that if you give special needs an opportunity, they'll do it. So we've become the clearinghouse for all the other organizations around town that would like to have special needs kids in their programs. So they come to us.
That's
so
awesome.
that we will share it with our people. And so we have a little resource guide that we pass out so that, again, just more things for them to do.
Yeah, that's incredible because, you come in, you're like, hey, we'll play baseball this spring, and then you have all these other great opportunities and resources and ways for them to get connected.
It's very important to be part of the Miracle League. We got all the secrets.
That's right. You heard it here first, folks.